1. A kingdom in tension. The year is 1340. Europe is a mosaic of kingdoms constantly shifting between alliances and animosity. Portugal, still young compared to its neighbors Castile and Aragon, stands in a precarious position. Although its borders are stable for the moment, politically the nation is vulnerable. King Afonso IV knows this very well. He understands that survival in medieval Europe requires more than armies, it requires strategic marriages. And so, a deal is struck. His son and heir, Prince Peter, will marry Constanza Manuel of Castile, a noblewoman with impeccable family connections. It is a marriage meant to protect Portugal, not to make the young prince happy. Peter knows this. He knows his duty, his role, the expectations heavy upon his shoulders. But knowing something doesn't mean accepting it. As the day approaches when his bride will finally arrive from Castile, Peter waits with the emotional enthusiasm of a prisoner awaiting execution. He doesn't want this marriage. He doesn't want the life he is being forced into. But duty is duty. At least, that's what he believes, until the carriage arrives. 2. A single moment that changes everything. The royal procession from Castile moves like a glittering river of silk. Banners and armored escorts, courtiers line the roads, musicians play, nobles whisper, and Peter stands, outwardly calm, inwardly resigned. Then the carriage door opens. And she steps out. A woman so striking that Peter's world stops. His breath freezes, his stomach flips, his soul, which moments earlier felt heavy with dread, suddenly feels ablaze. This is Inés de Castro, one of Constanza's ladies-in-waiting. Not royalty. Not his fiancée. Not anyone he is supposed to look at for more than a brief glance. But he cannot look away. Her beauty is not delicate or faint, it's bold, magnetic, alive. Her eyes carry both strength and mystery, and her expression blends gentleness with quiet defiance. Every step she takes feels like it is pulling the universe along with her. Peter is stunned, thunderstruck, instantly obsessed. When Constanza herself finally steps out, kind, elegant, noble, Peter's heart does not move an inch. Because it has already been stolen. 3. A marriage doomed from the start. Peter and Constanza marry, fulfilling their father's pact. The ceremony is lavish, celebrated across both kingdoms, but there is a cold truth behind the smiles. The prince is already emotionally absent. In the months that follow, their marital life becomes a performance, two people bound by duty but separated by desire. Peter spends more and more time seeking opportunities to see Inés. He invents tasks, schedules, excuses, anything to steal a moment with her. At first, the servants only gossip quietly. Then, the nobles whisper more openly. Eventually, the entire court knows. Constanza is humiliated. Not only is her husband unfaithful, he is unfaithful with her own lady-in-waiting. Desperate to salvage her marriage, she attempts something shocking. She tries to name Inés the godmother of one of her newborn children, a symbolic act that would make future relations between Peter and Inés incestuous, under religious law. But the infant dies within a week. And the plan collapses. Constanza grieves. Peter does not. His obsession continues to grow. 4. King Afonso IV reaches his breaking point. The king is furious. Not disappointed. Not mildly annoyed. Furious. He sees what his son cannot, danger. Inés's brothers are exiled Castilian nobles, political refugees with ambitions of their own. By associating himself with them, Peter may drag Portugal straight into Castile's internal conflicts. Afonso decides. Inés must go. He exiles her repeatedly, sending her across the peninsula, hoping distance will kill the affair. But Peter only writes more passionately, visits more secretly, devotes himself to her more intensely. Eventually the king realizes something. He is not fighting lust, he is fighting destiny. Desperate, he orders Inés kept in Lisbon, close enough to monitor. But nothing changes. And then Constanza dies in 1349 during childbirth. With her death, Peter feels liberated. Now he can finally marry Inés. Make her his queen. Give legitimacy to their children. But Afonso refuses. He exiles her again, this time to Coimbra, and orders Peter to never marry her. Peter simply ignores him. He rides to Coimbra, moves in with Inés, and they live as husband and wife, raising 4 children together. For the king, this is nothing short of a national emergency. 5. Portugal or her. By 1355, Afonso has had enough. He sees civil war on the horizon. Illegitimate children mean succession disputes. Succession disputes mean rebellion. Rebellion means blood, instability, and foreign invasions. Inés, to Afonso, is not a person. She is a virus infecting the future of Portugal. So the king chooses a path from which there is no return. He sends 3 assassins to Coimbra. They find Ines at a monastery, sitting with her young children. She pleads for mercy. She begs that her life not be taken. She offers to leave Portugal forever. The men do not listen. They drag her away. And in front of her terrified children, they behead her. They leave her body on the cold monastery floor. A servant rushes to find Peter. When he arrives and sees what has been done, something inside him shatters so violently that it ricochets through history. He screams, weeps, curses the heavens, collapses beside the woman he loved more than the crown itself. Then his grief turns to fire. 6. A prince becomes vengeance incarnate. Peter swears revenge, not later, not someday, but now. He gathers loyalists. Mustering forces across northern Portugal, he wages open rebellion against his father. Castles burn. Villages are raided. Royal roads become battlegrounds. Afonso realizes too late that by trying to prevent civil war, he has caused one. For almost a year, father and son ravage the land in a conflict born from love and rage. Finally, it ends only because Peter's mother intervenes. A truce is forced. Shurjan Chow. The early half of the 20th century was a time of complete chaos in China. In 1912, due to political pressures, the 6-year-old Qing Emperor Puyi abdicated his throne, officially ending the 268-year-old dynasty. Within just 4 years, the country that was once the most powerful nation in Asia devolved into a land of constant violence. With areas governed by regional warlords fighting for control over the now toothless government in Beijing. This era is known today as the Warlord Era, and amidst the mayhem, a young woman would make history when she set out on a decade-long quest to avenge the death of her father. It's the 1920s, and Shi Guilin is a college student in Tianjin. Unlike most people who were suffering greatly in the Warlord Era, Guilin's life had taken quite the opposite turn. Her father, Shi Kongbin, had enlisted in the local military, and he quickly rose through the ranks. By 1925, he had gone from being the son of a simple farmer and tofu seller to a brigade general serving a powerful warlord aligned with the Fengshen clique. His family, including Shi Guilin, had in the process gained the status and prestige that came with such a rank. Everything was going great, until a second war broke out between the Fengshen and Zhuli cliques that changed her life forever. By October of 1925, the Fengshen had defeated the Zhuli, but a military governor named Sun Xuanfang had used the opportunity to seize control of his area, becoming a very powerful warlord himself. Shi Kongbin is deployed with a brigade of mercenaries to capture a city in Xuanfang's territory. And things initially go well for him, but during the battle, he and his men are caught off guard by a sneak attack led by the warlord himself. Kongbin's forces are quickly overwhelmed, and he is taken hostage. The following day, he is tied up and brought to a local train station. A crowd gathers, and Xuanfang orders his prisoner decapitated. Kongbin's head is paraded around the station on a bamboo pike, and then displayed for all to see. News of her father's death reaches the young Shi Guilin, and she initially mourns the loss of her father. But soon, her tears of sadness burn her cheeks, and she is consumed by anger. This warlord had not just killed her father. By displaying his head, he had dishonored his entire family. How could anyone tolerate such disrespect? She swears that she will stop at nothing to avenge her father and restore her family's honor. But that would be much easier said than done. See, Xuanfang was now one of the most powerful warlords in China, and Shi Guilin. Well, she was a 21-year-old college kid. The thought of a random student assassinating someone that powerful seemed highly improbable. But Guilin had made up her mind. She changes her name to Shi Jinchao, the Rising Sword, and sets out on a quest for revenge. But before she was able to find Xuanfang, the warlord's life would take the most peculiar turn as well. By 1926, Chinese citizens were sick and tired of the warlord system. A group from the south of China, called the Kuomintang, took advantage of this public sentiment and they set out on their own quest to defeat every warlord in China to reunite the country. This whole event, called the Northern Expedition, probably deserves its own video. But to massively oversimplify the story, the warlords were all defeated by the KMT in about 2.5 years. This didn't really fix the constant fighting in China. But with the warlord system gone, Xuanfang lost everything he had worked for, left with nothing to show from the last 15 years of being a ruthless warlord general. Xuanfang shaves his head and actually becomes a devout Buddhist. Well, all that is respectable and all, I guess. Shi Zhenchao didn't get the memo, and she begins tirelessly working to unearth clues to identify and locate her father's killer. For 10 whole years she chases leads, traveling hundreds of miles searching for Xuanfang, until finally, she finds him in the city of Tianjin. As she watches the former warlord from the shadows, it takes all of her self-control not to end him right then and there. But she had spent a decade of her life in preparation for this moment. She knew that she would only have one shot to take him down. And she could not waste that opportunity. So, instead, she stalks her prey for months, learning his daily routine, until finally, she had selected the perfect place to enact her revenge. On November 13, 1935, Shi Zhenchao steps into a lay Buddhist hall, and, as expected, finds Xuanfang kneeling with his eyes closed, leading a group in the chanting of a sutra. As he continued the recitation, Shi Zhenchao slowly walked directly behind her father's murderer, and carefully drew her pistol. She points her weapon at the former warlord, and coldly unloads 3 rounds into his head and back. Xuanfang instantly falls dead, and the hall erupts into a panic. But, instead of trying to run away, Zhenchao proudly sits next to the dead body, and begins to hand out leaflets she had prepared prior to the killing that explained why she did what she had just done. Shi Zhenchao is arrested for murder, but the media picks up the story of the killing of Xuanfang, and it instantly divides the people of China. The traditionalists see her actions as the ultimate form of filial piety, the Confucian doctrine of love and honor for one's parents, while the modernists demand justice and to uphold law and order. Her court case becomes the biggest story of the year, and eventually reaches the Supreme Court in Nanjing. Due to overwhelming public support, she was granted a full state pardon, and the killing of Xuanfang was deemed an ethically justifiable act of filial piety. Having avenged her father's death, she peacefully lives out the rest of her days, and dies in 1979 at the age of 74. Okay, this last story completely blew me away, because not only was it the first time someone actually stopped the Mongol conquest in its tracks, it's probably one of the craziest movie-like stories of revenge in history. It's 1231, and the once vast and powerful empire known as Khwarezmia lies in complete ruin. As retribution for the disrespect shown to Mongol emissaries by the governor of Uttar, Genghis Khan and his army had invaded the land, killing an estimated 15 million people as they burned entire cities to the ground. Amongst the remnants of the once proud civilization, the Mongols who continue their occupation of the land find a young Khwarezmian prince and sell him to a slave merchant in Egypt. The boy is purchased by the local sultan, and is put into training to become a Mamluk, a warrior class of slaves used by the rulers of the Muslim world as elite knights. The former prince is thrown in with the rest of the slave children, and is forced to endure the strictest of training regiments designed to turn boys into hardened men. From a young age, he is thrust into combat against other children, and he is given the name Qutuz, the rabid dog, because he fights like a vicious beast against the other slaves. Qutuz rises through the ranks, and eventually becomes the vice sultan of Egypt in 1253. By now, the Mamluks had revolted against their masters, and established their own sultanate, becoming the rulers of the land. Against all odds, the former prince had made his way from slavery back to a royal position. But an easy life was not his destiny, and ghosts from his past would soon return to haunt him. Though Genghis Khan had died in 1227, his grandson, Hulagu Khan, had continued the Mongol expansion westward. Like demons, they had brought nothing but death and destruction to every land they touched. In 1254, they sacked the city of Baghdad, and massacred all of its inhabitants. Ending the Islamic Golden Age, the Mongols then pushed into Syria, and took the cities of Aleppo and Damascus. The Ayyubid Sultan sends word to Egypt, pleading for help against the Mongols, and Qutuz is haunted by the memories of the destruction of his homeland. He knows the horrors the horde from the east will bring, and if the Mamluks are to have any chance of survival, Egypt must have strong leadership. He